Okay. All right, all right. Here we are with. I am losing track of this. We are on episode 8 today with this. Uh, at the time of recording this, we're like a week away from Thanksgiving, but by the time this comes out, it will be Thanksgiving. So, welcome to the Thanksgiving episode. Um, Today we're not going over anything super specific, but I wanted to graze over the topics of being grateful, having gratitude, and sort of how would I say the physicality of it. If that doesn't make sense, that's what we're going to be diving into today. Um, as always, we're live here, Friday, 10 a.m. Remix Audio Bar. We record these episodes live every week. If you want to come check out the live recording sessions and such, from Wednesday to Saturday, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. close. Dinner services, ramen bowl, chicken yakitori, rice onigiri, really good. Especially the chicken yakitori. Absolutely adore it. But we have the new setup here. Did something a bit different with scripting this episode this week, and mainly in preparation for having a guest star come on and such. So episodes might be a little shorter moving forward, just because it makes it quicker to get this stuff out on a weekly basis and such. Um, Other than that, hopefully by the time this episode's out, episode 7's also out and such. Sorry for the delays on that. Messing with the audio has been very difficult, and I got into a wicked crash last week, so if I'm a bit stiff with my movements for anyone watching through the YouTube, that's why I got a huge bruise on my shoulder. Okay, though, everyone involved was okay, and that's the important thing. Uh, Incredibly grateful for that. Like, genuine miracle. And how ironic that we're doing the Thanksgiving episode. As, what else? What else was there? Sorry, my head's just been out of it for the past week. Um, Also, Cakes Cafe. I help run an open mic. If you are in the Santa Fe area and are looking for a place to share your creations, art, music, poetry, anything of the sorts, every Wednesday, 7 to 11, Cakes Cafe. Come check it out. But other than that, we're going to get straight into the episode here. I want to start with something positive that happened this week. And it was quite literally just I got to have a few days off. It was really nice to relax. Always nice to get some downtime, R&R. Not just like, and when I say like days off, not like, oh, I have a day off from work, I can catch up on all this other stuff. I'm talking like sit down, have a nice cup of chocolate, cute little treat, whatever, tickles your taste buds and all that, and watch some stuff. That's my days off. That's how I relax. So, really glad I got to have a few of those days. Alright. Thanksgiving episode, the day of corn on the cobs, turkeys, mashed potatoes, various salads, pecan pies that probably don't get eaten for months. What are we going over for this episode? So as I already said, the themes, gratefulness, gratitude, same thing, but mainly focus on the physicality of it. What I'm going to be going over is this is going to be a similar episode to episode 4 where I talked about foundation, inspiration, connection, a lot of stuff that impacted me growing up, that led to kind of like the sort of life I live, the music taste I have, the reason I like writing, the reason I enjoy doing all this. I wanted to dim down on more of the foundation idea of that by going over a cartoon today and a band that, fresh out of high school, I got re-familiar with, and it kind of propelled me forward into my adult life out of high school. That one being the cartoon Courage the Cowardly Dog. It's an early 2000s cartoon. I believe it came out a few years later after the airing of Ed, Ed, and Eddie, which came out in 1999. And we're going to be going over, I would call them jazz rock or funk rock band. Saint Motels. A lot of listeners are probably familiar with that band. They're a lot more well known around the world than more of the underground or indie bands I usually talk to or about. Such, not like Kick the Robot, where no one's ever heard of them. Ghost town of a band, essentially. But most well known for their EP release, especially My Type and Cold Cold Man. That's kind of what put them on the charts and really just shot them up to a music career. Well, they still had a music career, but it definitely made them it was a big reason for why they're as big as they are now. Well, for a movie equivalent, it was a blockbuster hit, essentially. But what we're gonna go over is a few songs by Saint Motel. We're gonna go over a handful of episodes of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Mostly the premise of the show itself. Every episode is technically self-contained and more episodic, even though all of it's canon. We'll unpack that when we get there, though. So the first thing I want to start with on the topic of Saint Motel is going to really hammer in the point of physicality. The first song I ever listened to by them was when they were getting ready for the release of their third album, Original Motion Picture Soundtrack. Was A Good Song Never Dies. And it's a very simple song. It was the lead single for the album. And it follows the course of everyone has a favorite song. It's a song that you always remember under certain circumstances. A good song that it reminds you of when you cried. It reminds you of when you felt alive. Lyric straight from the song, ripped from it. It's kind of, how would I say, an homage to music itself, as it talks over many themes of music giving you hope, making you lovesick, memorable, nostalgic, or whatever kind of music or song. It goes over so many fields over this little old subject. And at first listening to that song, I had not been as incredibly into like music at all. Like, I listened to music. I had a few songs I would play on repeat. But I never like really deep dived into the lyrics or appreciating the instrumentals or the people behind the music and such like that. I listened to the song for the first time, and I could get the message, but I couldn't really. I could understand what they were trying to say. They were trying to say with the song, but it just didn't click at all. I've never really had a song that's really called out to me like that. And that could just be a matter of you just haven't listened to that song yet, or you haven't gone through circumstances yet where you listen to a song again and finally really understand, like deep down in your chest or your head or whatever, what it really stands for, what the message behind it really is, what the story behind the lyrics were, what the original purpose for why this song was written, made, and sung, created. Upon hearing that first song, I kind of made it a mission to, I guess, for a lack of better term, educate myself on the music world. I say that there wasn't really any educating. It was mainly just broadening my taste in music. I was taking all sorts of recommendations from friends, family, strangers, I was trying to go to more local scenes and such. Bars that had live music performances where bands were playing anything, exploring many different genres. St. Motel is very important for that. Sorry, once again, I say this every week. I am under the weather. I am a very sick boy. I'm very fragile. I'm like a peasant who steps in like a little pile of mud in like the dark ages, and I'll have to get my foot cut off and die. I am that sickly. But moving forward, Saint Motel was a huge building block to getting to where I am now. Granted, my music taste, I would say, has definitely taken roots in like heavier stuff like alt rock, punk rock, uh, occasional indie music here and there. But I've definitely moved on from like out of high school COVID pandemic era where I was listening to jazz, a lot of acoustic stuff, groovy music, funkadelic music, and such. I do listen to a bit of psych rock here and there, but my music taste has definitely grown a lot more, and it'll probably keep growing. I'll probably grow out. Sorry, I just saw a car hit a cone. Yeah. For those who haven't been here to the live recordings, I have a lovely window here behind the camera where I get to see the adventures of the street, but in front of the lovely cafe where we record. Sorry, getting off track, but that's not to say I still don't dislike Saint Motel. I still love Saint Motel. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. They have had a huge impact on my life, and not just musically. And that's why we're gonna get into it today. We're gonna be talking about a few songs that have really struck home for me, whether it's the message itself and a matter of like empathy, or in cases of I have experienced, gone through this stuff, and these songs kind of help put perspective on these situations. The first one I want to talk about is one of my absolute favorite songs by them is Sweet Talk. And it goes over the whole delusion of falling in love, and I would say it's best of a topic of limerence at its worst, where it goes over the singer is madly in love with this woman, absolutely adores every single about her, compliments and compliments and compliments, and he says the way it's reciprocated back is that he's called a creep, a weirdo, to get out of her life, shove off, and such. And he says, "Oh, that's just sweet talk to my ears." Of course, upon hearing that, you can immediately get the idea that it's delusional. The singer is delusional. Our character in this song doesn't know any better. He is absolutely hypnotized in his own fantasy about romance and such. Uh, I, of course, have discussed in the past the importance of thinking positively and being realistic, and how important it is to balance these things. This song here is just another of many that kind of glaze over that topic. But this is a topic I do want to discuss in a future episode, is romance. So I feel like it's important to put these little breadcrumbs throughout the episodes before we get to that one, which is limerence. That's ultimately the message of this song. While you can feel like you're on cloud nine, you're high on life with everything with romance, this is a two-person dance. This woman in the song didn't ask to be obsessed over, to have someone fall in love with her and such. She wants this man out of his life, essentially. And you could definitely make the interpretation that it's he's doing some unhealthy stuff or whatever. The song doesn't go into that. It's just the sweet talk stuff. Just, he gets talked down, punched down by the woman of his dreams, and none of it phases him. It's the main message of the song. It's just how I had, for lack of a better term, it's supposed to be an ironic take. It's like a parody of those who get lovesick with people and just all logic, common sense, street smart out the window. It's making fun of these people that fall madly in love and such. And being a dumb high school kid or out of high school and such, it kind of put me in my place hearing that song for the first time. Just being like, I do kind of just I get love crazy when I'm getting feeling the emotions and such. Everything goes out the window. The logic, care, anything. There's like nothing else in the world of good old Dalen when he's in love. And honestly, I probably would have had to taken a lot more tumbles to like realize that if I have never came across the song, never heard of it, never had it told straight to me. And that's where we kind of fall into what I'm talking about today, which is being grateful, being thankful. Because Thanksgiving, it's the day to give thanks. Uh, of course, every year have dinner with my family. I'm thankful to my ma. I'm thankful to my pa. I'm thankful to my little brother. I'm thankful to my friends, to everyone that I have met, interacted with, has led me up to this point. I'm thankful to Remix, to Justin for giving me a space to make this show, to express my ideas, everything, and all that. Oh, sorry, my bad. Still getting used to this new mic setup. But you see what I'm getting off on. The number one common thing across all this is, of course, physicality. It's a person, place, or thing. It's something I can touch, grab, hug, or anything of the sorts. I feel like an important thing to keep in mind is the abstracts in life. The thoughts we have, the realizations, the aha moments, moments of Sonder, I guess you could say. Not gonna deep dive into that as one future for food for thought, episode for another. I'm talking backwards. Idea for another episode, and particularly discussions on Sonder itself, which stray from the main point I'm trying to get across, which is the smaller or more abstract things in your life. The things we can't really touch or really notice every day, but every day I'm reminding myself of like these different bands and songs and media I've consumed. I'm incredibly thankful because legitimately it's made me the scrapbook of a person I am today. Molded me into what I want to become as a person, and my best image of myself, my ideal self. And Saint Motel is a huge factor that played in that. It set me on this journey of realizing these things. I always say, music doesn't solve your problems, but it can definitely play as a guiding hand. Uh, Another song, uh, local long distance relationship, but I'm gonna call it L.A. to New York. Uh, Goes over a toxic relationship, a very similar situation I was in myself as well. It goes over this couple that moves into an apartment in L.A. and they're spending every day together. Come home, one of them will stay home making dinner or cleaning around. One will come home from work, nothing, no interaction, no engagement or whatever. They can go out, be holding hand in hand, hugging each other, kissing, and it will feel one-sided. There's no reciprocation. It is, as the songwriter describes, it feels like even though we're in the same room, it feels like it's a long-distance relationship, as if I'm in LA and you're in New York. In the terms of like an emotional isolation, in a sense, as I've talked before, distance can be a huge factor in how we feel emotionally about people and such. It can be very, whatever the case is, it can be very hard to cross that gap and such. And for the longest time, like I said, I was in a similar relationship, broke things off, but I still couldn't help that there was more I could have done to be reciprocated on those feelings. I feel like I was just not doing enough. I could have done much more. There were like little things I could have added upon and such during this time of the relationship. It was upon hearing that song that kind of made me realize sometimes you're just gonna get into unhealthy relationships. That really isn't the message of the song. The message of the song is what the relationship is, not the resolution, the getting out of it and such. But even though that wasn't the intention, that was the interpretation I got from the song. It really helped me come to terms with moving on from that. I like I was already out of the relationship by the time I heard that song. It had already been a good while. Not like about how to say, a year after it happened. But as I said earlier, it kind of guided me from to move on. It didn't like give me all the answers, but it put it into perspective and such. So whenever I hear get into a relationship, my number one thing is being careful about it, making healthy choices, making sure that like it, even if it doesn't work out, it doesn't end badly, essentially, and not to get delusional, not to be caught up in limerence, but to embrace what is in the reality of things, my genuine feelings with Sweet Talk, LA to New York. So sorry about that again. I'm very sick. Ugh. I'm probably gonna say that next week too. It's like, oh, sorry guys, I'm under the weather. Oh, good heavens. But I have a few more songs I want to talk about if we have the time for it. Uh, I'll go over them in the little tidbits in the conclusion. But we're gonna move on to Courage the Cowardly Dog. Now, Courage the Cowardly Dog was a cartoon I grew up with, but I mentioned earlier that during the pandemic, I kind of got reacquainted with the show. More like there wasn't really much for me to do during lockdown straight out of high school. Our house was had been damaged by a lot of black mold, so we weren't able to live in it. We were living in an apartment for a few months because of that, and I was just catching up whatever left of my studies were for just to graduate, get my diploma, and all that. So there wasn't really much to do other than play video games and just watch shows. Courage the Cowardly Dog was one of those shows, and it made me realize how much it kind of molded me into the person I am, and such. Of like, for those who haven't seen it, it follows the family of Muriel and Eustace and their little dog, little pink dog that they adopted, Courage. And they live quite literally where it's called the middle of nowhere. And it's very simple. Crazy, insane things always happen that are threatening the lives of Eustace and Muriel. And it's up to Courage, who is by nature, by character, a very cowardly character, to save them. Despite everything that happens in every episode, that he is confronted with death at every end and turn. He's a very timid character. He's a very afraid of the littlest of things. He does not let that stop him, because that's his name. It's Courage. I feel like there's a bit of confusion with the word courage. Courage, for the unformed, is not the lack of fear, but is to have the willingness to do whatever you need to do in the face of those fears. And it sends it straight home every episode without failure. Courage, despite being terrified, despite the odds, always finds a way to come out on top and save his family. Sometimes it's not his family. Sometimes it's a friend he's met. Sometimes it's himself and such. But the main idea is it's not just conquering a big, bad monster. It is growing as a person. There's, sorry, I don't remember the name of any of these episodes, but there's the teacher episode where this random teacher manifests in his room, turns his room into a classroom, and is just absolutely mean, heinous, hideous to Courage. Berates him, terrifies him at every turn, telling him he has to be the perfect little puppy, essentially, for his family. And whenever he does anything wrong or tries to get artsy and such, he's punished for it. And and to the point where he gets terrified of failing. He gets terrified of not being perfect. He's terrified of himself, of what he can't do, essentially. You see where I'm getting at here. There's no physicality there. There's a fear. There's something enroaching our character here. Courage. However, it's not something he can touch. It's not something he can physically combat or engage with. Lack of physicality. And the episodes are very short. They tend to be 10 to 15 minute long shorts, sometimes even shorter. It really depends on the episode. The realization that comes to Courage is when he's looking himself in the bathroom, absolutely disappointed with himself, how he looks, what he does, everything. He hates everything about him. That fear turns into disappointment. And he's just on the verge of essentially just giving up and giving in to these lessons, just losing anything that makes him Courage, the Cowardly Dog. And for those who haven't seen Courage the Cowardly Dog, this is like the most tame thing that's ever happened in the episode. But this probably sounds random as it gets to someone who hasn't seen it. In that same scene where he's in the bathroom looking at himself, about to just fold, in the tub there's a dead fish that's swimming around. This fish gets out of the tub, talks to Courage, and he says, "It's our flaws that makes us perfect." It goes on some whole speech, but to dim it down, that's the whole idea he gets across with his little speech. It is our curiosity, it is our faults that make us perfect, that lead us to be better every day. And so, for his final lesson, he confronts the teacher to create something that's, in idea, perfect. And he tries to create something, it's always a mess, it keeps messing up and all that, and the teacher berates him and such. And he's like, I'm completely fine with this. I'm okay with being a failure. I'm okay with being a loser. That's who I am. I'm grateful for that. Hey, you see? If you're watching on Spotify, you probably don't literally see, but you hear. And with that, the teacher, of course, just disappears, thwarted, and Courage just goes on living his life, appreciating who he is, the life he has, and what he's capable of doing, what he can do. Another episode I want to go over is just topics of happiness and sadness. There's one episode in Courage where there's this giant guy in a tower, builds a giant machine, and he crawls over the middle of nowhere, and he loaded with these cannons in his towers. They shoot cannonballs. They don't break anything. They don't do anything. But if this cannonball hits someone, it makes them sad, unbearably sad, to the point where they don't do anything. They laze around. They just mope like a dope. They do nothing. He goes on like a terror spree in a nearby town, and it's not until he gets to middle of nowhere where he shoots these cannonballs, makes Eustace and Mariel sad with the cannonballs and all that. It makes them super, depressed. It's not like a crazy episode and such. But Courage, of course, climbs the tower to stop him. It's the whole point of the episode, but not like destroy the machine or anything. What I really like how they confront this episode is when Courage finally gets to the top of the tower to confront this. We'll call him Dr. Sadness. We'll just call him Dr. Sadness for the sake of clarity. Dr. Sadness. They talk it out. He gives him like a little therapy session and such. And the whole the whole idea that gets across is sadness is a part of life. It's because we have these ups, is because we have downs. To be happy, you have to know what it's like to be sad. To understand how delicious the world's best wine is in the world, you had to have at least once drank some really cheap wine that you probably bought from a corner store. To know how really good and well food can be cooked, like, say, for example, a pork chop. You had to have had at least a bag pork chop, get food poisoning once to know how good food really can taste. That's essentially what Courage tells him. By having nothing in his life, that's what truly makes him sad. And he ends up, becoming more appreciative of his friends, his minions, who are he sees his family, sees his friends and stuff. It was mostly just a lack of appreciation for everything in his life. He only focused on the negatives, the downs, and all that, and saw as like his whole perspective was if sadness at all ever exists in my life, then it's only sadness. Not that I can still be happy and there can still be sadness in my life, essentially. And he learns to be grateful for the things he does have in his life. And that's where we bring us to on our closing thoughts here. Courage the Cowardly Dog, one of my favorite all-time cartoon shows. I'm very grateful that it was one of the shows my parents let me watch as a kid because, boy oh boy, it taught me a lot. Honestly, I probably wouldn't be a big fan of horror movies if it wasn't for Courage the Cowardly Dog. I used to be terrified of scary things because of Courage, but overcoming those fears, I realized a lot of things we're scared of will end up being, more often than not, something we really enjoy the most in our lives. Whether that be like the high of conquering something or achieving something is up for another debate, but completely unrelated to the episode. But I do hope that what I got across with this episode is the idea of, looking beyond just the immediate things in your life and really appreciating it. Like, really just going a little trip down memory lane, being like, wow, maybe this wouldn't have happened and all that. That's talking in aspects of coulda, shoulda, woulda. But I do think it's important to keep these things in mind. Not really make it a focus, but, every now and then just remember in life. That's why I have a podcast talking about philosophy and mental health, mostly mental health. Sometimes we broaden into philosophy. It really depends on the subject. But I talk about all that stuff through albums, cartoons, comics, and such. Really weird way to bridge into that stuff, but it's those little things have had a big impact on me. Next week's episode of Nothing Goes Wrong, it will be an episode about comedy. And we'll be having a guest star, Taylor Cheeks. He'll be sitting or standing right here, and we'll both be talking about different medias relating to comedy, laughter, and such like that. As for this week's recommendation, what I recommend is you eat some turkey. I don't got a comic or a movie or anything for you really this week. As this is going to be the last I touch on the topic. I kind of want this to be more of a self-contained episode. But other than that, thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. And as I said, if you're in the area, we record these episodes live 10 a.m. every week at Remix Audio Bar on 222 North Guadalupe Street. And with that, I'm signing off. I'll catch you guys next week.